Okay, we begin today the Gemara on Daf Lamed Ches, the first line on the Amud. We're in the middle of the sugya of Bishul Akum, foods that was cooked by Goyim, that Chazal Aserd, and the reason is Mishum Chasnos. That's what most Rishonim say. Rashi here actually says that Chachamim Aserd Bishul Akum because he may come to serve you food that's not kosher, Dover Tameh. And here in today's Gemara we'll see all of the Haterim that there are regarding Bishul Akum. So the Gemara, Amar Rav Shmuel, Bar Rav Yitzchak, Amar Rav, Kol HaNechal Kamois Shu Chai, any foods that can be eaten raw, Ein Boi Mishum Bishulei Avdei Kechavim. The Isser of Bishul Akum does not apply to this. And so, for example, eating fruits and anything that could be eaten raw, the whole halacha of Bishul Akum, Chachamim did not include it in the Gzeira.
Even if you cook it.
Correct, of course, yeah, after it's cooked. Besura Masnu, Hachi, this is how they quoted what Rav Shmuel Bar Rav Yitzchak said in the name of Rav, this halacha. But the Pumpadise Masnu Hachi. In Pumpadise, they quoted what he said differently. Amar Rav Shmuel Bar Rav Yitzchak Amar Rav, Kol she'eina nechal al shulchan malachim. Any foods that's not enough of a chashuv food that's brought on a table of a king, or doesn't mean dafka a king, a table of nobility, of chashuv people, lelafis by a sapas, to be used to eat together with bread, ein by mishum bishulei avdei kechavim. The halacha of Bishul Akum doesn't apply to this either. So all kinds of snacks and foods that are not used on a table of nobility, the Isser of Bishul Akum does not apply. There's a famous machlokes about this, the potato chip machlokes. Whether you look at the food for what it is, lechatchila, potatoes is something, if it's prepared properly, can be brought on Shulchan Malachim. Or you look at the final product, potato chips is not something that's served on a table of nobility. So that's a famous machlokes. So here the Gemara brings these two opinions that the way Rav was quoted. Says the Gemara, "My benayu." What's the practical difference between these two? Ikke benayu. The difference would be dogim, ketanim, small fish, va'ardi, which is mushrooms and truffles, v'daisa, some kind of a porridge. These are all things that cannot be eaten raw, but they're not chashuv enough to be served at a table of nobility. And therefore, according to the second opinion, there's no issue of Bishul Akum, but according to the first opinion, since it's not eaten raw, there still is an issue. Now, Tosfos Severe points out that you see the Gemara only brings an afgemineh in this case where it's something that cannot be eaten raw, but it's not oil al shulchan malachim. It doesn't bring an opposite afgemineh. And from this, Tosfos proves that the second opinion held, like the first opinion, is just adding. The second opinion held that the kula of something which can't be that could be eaten raw is mutter, is true, but it held that it goes even a step further, even more. Even if it can't be eaten raw, but as long as it's not oil al shulchan malachim, it'll be mutter. And therefore, la halacha, we paskin that we accept both of these kulas, that anything that's whether it can be eaten raw or it's not oil al shulchan malachim, there's no issue of Bishul Akum. And now the reason for this is because what's the whole concern of Bishul Akum? According to most Rishonim, chasnos. You come to mingle and to marry. That's only when you have a chashuv of food, or something that you're relying on the guy to cook for you, and that he invites you for this chashuv meal, and that brings together people. Only then will chacham geizer. But otherwise, it's not included in the gzeira. Amar Avasi, Amar Rav, dogim, ketanim, meluchim, small fish that are salted. This is like herring that could be eaten raw, and it's salted. Ein behem mishom bishulei avdei kechavim. If this fish now is taken and it's going to be cooked, so then there's no issue of a Bishul Akum. Right, so this is not the same dogim ketanim that the Gemara was talking about before. Before the Gemara just mentioned dogim ketanim, which was an example of fish that cannot be eaten raw. This is another kind of dogim ketanim that it can be salted and you can eat it that way. So therefore, if it's cooked, there's no issue of Bishul Akum. Rav Yosef says now im so therefore if a guy roasts it, a Yid could use this for Erev Tavshilin because you're allowed to eat it. However, if a guy prepares these small fish made with kosad harsana, which is made with a sauce or it's used with flour that makes this. So this is something that the kosa, which is made from flour, that's something that cannot be eaten raw. And for that, there is an issue of Bishul Akum, so then aser. Then it will be aser. This additional point here seems to be obvious. If it's not just the fish itself that can be eaten raw, but there's other ingredients that cannot be eaten raw, so it should be a problem. Answers the Gemara, no, there's a chiddush because mao the teime harsan iker. I would think that even if you're adding this other additional part to this fish with flour, but that's not the ikr though. The ikr is the fish itself. It's like you have the mashal today. You have a fish, breaded fish. So there's the fish, and then there's the bread outside, which is not the ikr l'chayra. So I would think that it would be allowed. Kamash malon. Therefore, it's adding that no, you have the fish, and then you have the other part that's made with flour. It's going to be aser because that part cannot be eaten raw. Kimcha, kamash malon, kimcha ikr. He's telling you that flour is the ikr in this dish. It adds a lot of flavor, and it's the ikr, and therefore it'll be aser. Omar Rav Bruna, Omar Rav. Rav Bruna said in the name of Rav, Oivik Chavim shehitzis saor be'agam. A guy that's lighting a fire in a place which is a swampy land, and he wants to get rid of the swampiness and turn it into a good piece of land. So kol hachagavim shabagam, the grasshoppers, that there's a lot of grasshoppers in this kind of area. So if you find now there are grasshoppers that are mutter to eat, but asurin, they're going to be asur because a guy is the one that lit the fire and he's ending up cooking these grasshoppers that you're going to be eating. So the Gemara asks, what kind of case are we talking about? Heichi dami, what is this story here? Are we talking about a situation where you have grasshoppers? There are some grasshoppers that are kosher and some that are not. We spoke about this a little bit yesterday on Daf Lamed Zayin. The Gemara discusses this halacha. There are certain simonim of exactly what grasshoppers are kosher. So if it's a case where it's not sure what is what, so then why did Rav say in a case where a guy lit the fire, then it's going to be a problem? It's also a Yisrael nami. Even if a Yid lights the fire, it's also a problem. So Elo, you have to say that what was Rav talking about? That the issue here is that the guy is the one that lit this fire, and he's trying to get rid of the swampiness, the wetness that there is in this area. But as he's doing that, what happens is the grasshoppers there get singed and cooked as well, and therefore there's an issue. But the Gemara asks: Is this going to be the issue with Bishul Akum? In such a kind of case, would it be aser even if the guy is the one that cooked it? But for Omer Rav Chana Barami Omer Padas Omer Rav Yechanan Hayev Kachavim the Chorich Reisha, a guy that's singeing the head of an animal because he wants to get rid of the hairs. Shari lemecho minei, you're allowed to eat from this. If by doing that it ends up then also getting cooked or partially cooked, you can eat from it. And that afilim mirei shunei, even from the tip of the ear of this head of the animal, which is very soft and gets very well cooked through this, you can eat from it. So Alma, what we see from this halacha that Rabbi Yochanan said is that la'abure seyar kamachavim. Since when the guy lit the fire and he's singeing the hairs of the animal, he's only doing it to get rid of the hairs. So the only time that Bishul Akum is aser is if the guy is actually intending to cook this food. He's intending to cook the food, so then it's included in the Gzeira. He might come and serve a Yid, and you'll mingle with them. But if a guy is doing it for a different purpose, B'chlal, he's not even trying to cook it, so then there's no issue. So if so, Hachanami, regarding this case that Rav spoke about as well, when a guy is lighting a fire in a swampy area, all he's trying to do is to get rid of the swampiness, so there should be a place that you could live. The fact that the grasshoppers got cooked there shouldn't be a problem. So therefore the Gemara goes back to the previous pshat, the halacha Rav was speaking about was nothing to do with Bishul Akum, but it's talking about grasshoppers, and he's saying that all these grasshoppers, it's hard to see which one are kosher and which one are not, and that's why you can't eat from it. So why did it mention dafke if a guy does this? Because the Ma'aseh Shaya, Rav Bruna is quoting a psak din that Rav said regarding an actual story that happened. And over there happened to be a guy, so he said it lagabi a guy. But the same halacha would apply regarding a Yid. Here the issue is that we don't know which one is kosher and which one's not. That's the issue.
Not mitzvah.
No, yeah, mitzvah bishul akum. So then it's only by a guy, yeah. Guf, now coming back to this halacha that Rabbi Yechanan said. That a guy that's singeing the head of an animal, you can eat from it, and even from the tip of the ear, which was properly cooked. So Ravina says, Hilkach, therefore, based on this halacha of Rabbi Yechanan, a guy that throws a sichsa, a piece of wood, or a what's the translation of sichsa again? It's a needle, like a small little thing. He throws it. Yes, a little. Yeah, he throws a small thing into an oven. No, but it's something that he's putting into the oven because he wants to. What do they have there?
Peg.
A peg. He puts a peg into the oven because he wants to strengthen it. He wants to harden it. And meanwhile, the cover by Yisrael, kara me kara. In that same oven, a yid had placed into the oven a gourd, a pumpkin, or so, into the oven already from before. And now the guy puts his thing into the oven and puts on the fire. Shapir dami, it's okay. Even though the guy is putting on the fire and it cooks the food that the yid put inside, but it's not a problem because the guy is not trying to cook here. The guy is trying to strengthen his peg that's in the oven, and the fact that the yid's food gets cooked by it, it's not going to be b'shalakim. Just like the halacha Rabbi Yochanan said when the fire was lit for a different purpose. In fact, so the Gemara asks pshita. It's pashut that you can make this comparison. What was the chiddush of Ravina? He's just giving another example for basically an identical thing that Rabbi Yochanan said. And says the Gemara, no, there is a difference. Ma'od the Teimeh, I would think that levashuli mana kamachaven, that he's putting in this peg, it is in the category of bishul. He's trying to cook this peg, to strengthen it. That is called bishul, and the guy doesn't want to cook the yid's gourd, but he does want to cook something. And therefore, if the yid's gourd gets cooked, it's going to be a problem. Kamash Malon, therefore it's telling you that no, l'shruri mana kamachaven. This is not called bishul. If it's a peg, he's just trying to harden it, strengthen it, and therefore when the yid's gourd gets cooked, it's not a problem. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, hineach Yisrael basa gabi gecholim. A yid places the meat on coals. Uboy v'kechavim, and a guy comes along v'hafach boy, and he turns over the meat. It helps it cooking. Mutter, it's allowed to eat from this meat. Now, frek the Gemara, hey chidami, what is the case here? If you're going to say the situation is, if the guy would have not turned over this meat, have a bushel, it would have anyways cooked properly. So then pshita, it's obvious that the guy didn't add anything, so it's not bishul akum at all. So it must be the case here is the ilay hafich. If the guy would not turn over this meat, have a bushel, it would not cook. So then amai mutter. Why should it be allowed? Bishulei avdi kechavim, you know. Without the guy turning over this piece of steak, it wouldn't cook properly. Says the Gemara, so the case here is as follows: the ilay hafach, if the guy wouldn't turn it over, have a bushel betarti shoy. It would cook, but it would take a longer time. It would take 2 hours. And v'hashte kabushel b'chodesh. And now the guy turned it over, so it cooks quicker in 1 hour. So now the Teimeh, I would think to say, Kiruvi Bishul Milsehi, the fact that the guy is quickening the process of it cooking is significant, that it should be included in this Gzeira of Chazal of Bishul Akum. And therefore, Kamash Malon, that's the Chiddush here that he said, that we don't say this. The adding the guy quickening the process of its cooking is not Isra of Bishul Akum. But for Omer Avasi, Omer Rav Yochanan. Avasi said in the name of Rav Yochanan that Kol Shuhu Kamaychol Ben Dresoi. The rule here about Bishul Akum is as follows: if it's something that was already cooked, at least Kamaychol Ben Dresoi. So Ben Dresoi was this robber that would eat food that was only half cooked, or according to another opinion, a third cooked. So any food that's cooked already, that amount, Kamaychol Ben Dresoi, Ein Boy Mishum Bishul Evdikachavim. If then the guy takes that food and adds and cooks it more, there's no issue of bishul akum, because this is something that's already considered to be cooked to some extent. Hilchah Shabbos also the same concept.
Rare.
But yeah, very rare.
Very rare.
Okay, but what do we understand from what Rav Yochanan said? Eina kamaychol ben dresoi. That means that if it was not yet cooked, kamaychol ben dresoi, and the guy comes and adds to its cooking, that it should be properly cooked, yesh by mishum bishul evdikachavim. There is an issue of bishul akum. So if so, going back to the case before, a person is preparing a steak and it's on the fire. From what it said before, it seemed like that the steak is on the fire and it's not cooked kamaychol ben dresoi. But if you leave it there, it'll cook in 2 hours. And the guy comes along and turns it over and it cooks quicker. So the Gemara said it's not an issue because it would have cooked anyways. But by the time when the guy turned it over, it wasn't yet cooked kamaychol ben dresoi. So when he turns it over, he's continuing the cooking process. It should be aser. As I just said, as long as the guy comes and continues the cooking process when it was not yet cooked kamaychol ben dresoi, it is a problem.
Who turned on the fire?
Okay, the turning on the fire is coming soon in the Gemara. We'll see. 1 second. Here, yeah, Pashtus Yid put on the fire, but nevertheless, we're talking here about the continuation of the process of the cooking. And according to the cloud that we're saying now, if the guy is the one that continues its cooking, it should be a problem. Oh, okay. The Gemara makes a similar distinction to what you're pointing out. Let's see. So the Gemara says the answer is Hasa. In this statement that Rabbi Yechanan said, Kagai the Eisve Besilta. That what happened was this was food that was cooking. It was steak or whatever it was that was cooking, and it was taken off the fire. It was put into a basket. And then the guy went and put it back into the oven or back onto the grill. In such a case, if it wasn't yet cooked, and it was already taken off the fire, the guy put it back on, so he's the one that's cooking it. It couldn't be eaten before. Mashenkin before, we're talking about the steak that's on the grill. No one removed it. So even though it was there when it was still pretty raw, and the guy came and turned it over, but since it was there, and the Yid put it in a position that if you leave it there, it'll cook in 2 hours. The fact that the guy turned it over and quickened the process of its cooking does not matter.
Are you going to snack them out with this one?
Yeah, correct. Because it was still on the fire. It was never removed. It stayed in that place where it would have cooked anyways.
Why don't you take it off? Makes a difference.
Once you take it off, if it's not...
It puts it back on, makes a difference if it's cooked or not cooked.
Now, if it's not Kamaichel Ben Dersoy, and the guy, if it is Kamaichel Ben Dersoy, then it's cooked. It's like it's fit to eat. It's like fit to eat already. So it doesn't matter.
So a guy could turn on the fire and
yeah. Once it's cooked Kamaichel Ben Dersoy, the guy could turn on the fire and put it back on. Yeah. Tanya Nami Hachi, it says this in a Braise, Maniach Yisrael Basar Gabi Gecholim. A Yid could put the steak, the meat on the coals on the grill. And then the guy comes and he turns it over. Yisrael Mibesa Knesses and Mibesa Medrash. While the Yid leaves, he goes to Davin, to Shul. And there's no problem. And similar, a woman could place the pot on the oven, on the stovetop, and then a boss of the Avedis Kechavim, and then the maid in the house comes, and she can stir the pot and continue preparing it until she comes back from the bathhouse, or from the shul, from davening. By the man, it says Beis HaMedrash or Beis HaKnesses, he went to learn or daven. By the woman, it says she went to the Beis HaKnesses to daven. And it's not a problem. And so the reason for this is because once it's on the fire and it wasn't ever taken off from the fire, here it doesn't make a difference if it was already cooked kamaichel ben dersoy or not. Even if it was totally raw, the Yid puts the steak onto the grill, the woman puts her pot into the fire. The rest she could have a maid or whoever it is do the continuation of the cooking. The Shaila was asked, how about if the case is the opposite? The guy is the one that placed it on the fire. And the Yid is the one that then turned over the steak or continued the cooking process. The Yid is the one that finished it off. What's the halacha in this case? So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak answers, it's not a shayla b'chlal. Kal v'chaymer. The svar is that it's a kal v'chaymer. Gomrei b'yadai v'kechavim muter. If the guy is the one that finished the cooking, we said it's allowed. Gomrei b'yad Yisrael lekol shekei. If the guy just placed it on the fire and the Yid finished its cooking, for sure it should be allowed. Right, so this is not the point here is not so much as looking at the concept of bishul. Where's the ikr of the bishul, the beginning or the end? You could say that the ikr of the bishul is the first moment, or the one that puts it on the fire. That's not the ikr point, as the Rishonim point out here. The main point over here is lagabi this gzeira. Lagabi this gzeira of bishul akum that could lead to chasnos. So the svara that he's saying is that if you're going to say that the guy finished most of the cooking and he's preparing the dish, and still it's allowed, it's not included in the Gzeira. Definitely if the guy just placed it on the fire, but the Yid is preparing the whole ending and he has the finished product, for sure it's not going to be an issue of Bishul Akum. It menami Omer Rabba bar Chana Omer Rav Yechanan v'Omer lo Omer Avacha bar Chana Omer Rav Yechanan bein shehiniach oivik kachavim, whether the case is the guy placed the food on the fire v'hafach Yisrael, then the Yid turned it over, finished the process, or bein shehiniach Yisrael, or if it's the Yid that put the food on the fire v'hafach oivik kachavim, and then the guy is the one that turned it over, mutter. Either way, it's going to be mutter. Ve'ena aser bishul akum is only asa cheit chilasai ugomre biyad oivik kachavim. At the beginning, a guy put it on the fire, and he also finished the cooking. Then it's the issue of bishul akum. So Amar Ravina, another halacha, Ravina says, and this is regarding lighting the fire. Hilchase, the halacha is, and here the Gemara brings this halacha regarding bread. Bread is not necessarily the same as bishul akum. Bishul akum is regarding all cooked foods, but bread was a separate gzeira that they made, pas akum. I mentioned yesterday, according to some Rishonim, that gzeira came first, or that gzeira came later, according to others, but it was a separate gzeira. So Ravina said regarding pas akum, that ha rifte the shagar evikechavim, the bread that a guy lit the fire of the oven, and va'afi Yisrael, and the Yid then baked in this oven, or inami, the other way around, shagar Yisrael, the Yid is the one that lit the fire of this oven, and va'afi evikechavim, and the guy baked in this oven, and then va'asa inami, or another case, third case, shagar evikechavim, va'afi evikechavim, the guy lights the fire of the oven, and he puts the bread, he's baking, putting the bread into the oven, but va'asi Yisrael v'chata ba chitui, the Yid came and stirred the coals. And Rashi emphasizes that it has to be that he stirred the coals in such a way that the flame of the fire got bigger. Then Shapidami, it's also allowed. And so this is another big heter that there is regarding, here the Gemara brings it regarding Pasakum, that is long, there's three stages in cooking or baking. There's the lighting of the fire, then there's the placing it into the oven, and then there's enlarging the flame. And either one, if a Yid does either one of these parts, it's going to be mutter. So many Rishonim say, I think this is the Psak Din in the Ramah, Shulchan Aruch, Tzemach Loikis, but I think the Ramah takes the shit of the Rishonim that say that even though the Gemara says that only regarding Pas Akum, but the same applies to Bishul Akum B'chlal, that you have this heter. Okay, Dog Meliach. Now, how about fish that is being strongly salted, like herring, and then it makes it raw to eat? Is this included in the Gzeira of Bishul Akum or not? It's like sometimes the Gemara uses the term meliach kereseach when it's something is cooked. It's like it's been it's salted. It's like it's been cooked. So it's a machlekes. Chizkiya shari. Chizkiya says it's allowed, and this is the way we paskin. But Rabbi Yechanan osa. Rabbi Yechanan says it's not allowed. Another machlekes beyetz luya, a roasted egg in its shells. So it's also machlekes. Bar Kapara shari. Bar Kapara says it's allowed because since it's inside and the guy does not touch the egg itself, the food itself, that's a heter. That's what Rashi says. But Rabbi Yechanan asa. Rabbi Yechanan in this case also said that a roasted egg in its shells is still going to be aser. There's another version of how this machlokes went. Ki aser Avdimi, when Avdimi came, he said, Omar echad dog meliach ve'echad beyetz luya, both regarding the salted fish and the roasted egg in its shells. So Chizkiya u Bar Kapara, both Chizkiya and Bar Kapara addressed both of these cases, and they were both sharu, they were both matter. And Rabbi Yechanan aser, it was only Rabbi Yechanan against these two that asked. No, but over here, in this case, it comes out that it's a roiv. You have two opinions that will matter in both cases against Rabbi Yechanan. In the first version, only one of them argued against Rabbi Yechanan in each case. So then the halacha would be like Rabbi Yechanan, because you always pass like Rabbi Yechanan. But over here, since there's a roiv against Rabbi Yechanan, possibly the halacha is not like Rabbi Yechanan. The Gemara here now brings a story about this. Rab Chiya Parva, Ikli lebei Reish Galusa. Rab Chiya Parva came to eat at the Reish Galusa. Amrulei, they said to him, they asked him the question, Beyot Sluya Mai. What's the halacha of this roasted egg in its shells? Is it a problem of Bishul Akum? So Amalahu, so he answered, like the second version we just had, Chizkiya or Bar Kapara sharu. Both Chizkiya and Bar Kapara said that this is allowed. Rabbi Yechanan asar. Only Rabbi Yechanan said that it's not allowed, and therefore ve'ein dvarav shel echad b'mokim shnayim. We don't accept the words of Rabbi Yechanan, which is one, against the two. So therefore he said that it's mutter. Amalu Rav Zvid was there, and he told the people there, Loi tatzisule, don't listen to what Rav Chiya said, because Hachi Omer Abaye. This is what Abaye said, Kivosei de Rabbi Yechanan, Hilchas said that is, Hilchas Kivosei de Rabbi Yechanan, that we do paskin like Rabbi Yechanan, and it's aser. Now these people here at this Reish Galusa were big Rishoyim, apparently, and what happened? Ashkiyu Nagute de Chola, they were so upset about the fact that he was machmer and he asked this of them, they gave him to eat this very sharp, like poisonous vinegar, and v'noch nafshe, and he died. Avzvid. Yeah, that's a simple pshat. The Gemara, there are some Mefarshim that say that the Gemara doesn't mamish mean literally, it means that they did something to him that harmed him, but in the simple pshat of the Gemara, it's saying that they killed him. Tanra Baran, we learned in the Braisa Kafrisen, the Kafrisen, which is from a caper bush. There are certain Kafrisen is it's not the paytas itself, the main paytas that grow on this paytas bush, but how do they translate it? The husks of the paytas of this caper bush, and va'kaflutais, which is leek, V'hametalia, which Gemara will describe soon. V'hachamin, and water that was boiled. V'hakloyos, and from the kernels of wheat that were roasted. Shalahan, from goyim mutarim, is allowed. All these are allowed, and why? The reason is because the heter by most of them is because they could be eaten the way they are raw. And Rashi actually adds another thing regarding some of them, like for example by water. Rashi says the reason is because the water doesn't change in its form. Interesting, because bambus by water you don't need that heter. You can just say the heter is because water can be eaten with, it could be, you could drink it even if it's not boiled. But Rashi says lo nishtano mibriyasan, and similar regarding the kloyes. Rashi here says lo nishtano kloyes, the kernels of wheat is not eaten raw. When you roast it, it can be eaten. So over here you need this heter of lo nishtano. So here you see a third heter. Before we had the heter of something that could be eaten raw. Here you see even if something cannot be eaten raw, but as long as it's not changed in its form after it's cooked, it's going to be mutter. Beyet sluya, a roasted egg in its shells, asura, will be asur. So he's following the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that it's asur. Shemen, regarding oil, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, ubeis dinoi, nimnu olav vehitiru. So Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, as we learned already before, this is a grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and his bezdin, they took account and they were mad to this. Tanya, so we learned in a brayso regarding the hametalia that was mentioned here. He hametalia, he pshalia, and he shieta. These are three different names for the same kind of dish of food. So my shieta, what is this food shieta? It's already 40 years that we heard that it came out from Mitzrayim, this thing, how you prepare this shieta. Rabbi Bar Chana himself said, it's already been 60 years since we heard from Mitzrayim how this is prepared. It says, there's no argument when they found out about this, because Mar B'Shani, each one taught and said a number of years in his time period. Rabbi Bar Chana was 20 years after Rabbi Yochanan, so he said it was already 60 years. So how do you prepare this food? Very interesting what's done over here. So what they would do is, Maisi Bizre de Karfisa, they would bring seeds from karpas, karpas is usually celery. And the bizre de kisna, then seeds from flax. Bizre de shablilta, which is fenugreek. Actually says fanagiria. Tilson. In Galatian Gemara it's usually tilson. V'taruluhu. And you soak them all together, bahadi adodi bipshuri, in lukewarm water. And v'shafkale, you leave it there ad the kabel until it begins to sprout. You bring a fresh earthenware barrel. You fill it with water. V'taribuhu gargishta, and you soak in it gargishta, which is cement.
Clay.
What do they have there?
Soaked clay.
Soaked clay. Okay, clay. Or madbekimbe, and then you take this mixture of all these different seeds and you put it in it, or you paste it together, and then you take this mixture of island lebei bunny, you take it into the bathhouse, and you leave it there for a short period of time. And at the nafku, by the time you walk out, malav levi, it already sprouts, and va'achli minayu, and you can eat from this, and v'kairi mibinasa de reishayu at tufra de karayu. And this food had such a strong power that it was able to cool the person down from the hairs of his head until the nails of his toes. That was the power of this food, and this is what what's it called? Shieta food is.
What is it? What's it made?
Try it.
It's ice cream. Yeah.
So the Gemara says about this, we had many of these kinds of very unusual kinds of foods that the Gemara, we had even in the Masechta before we learned. But over here regarding this, Omar Ravashi says, Omar Rab Chanina said about this, milin. This is just words. This can't be true. Meaning, he says you can place it in the bathhouse and it right away sprouts. That doesn't happen. So this is just words. But others said that he actually said different. He said bim milin, that the way this works is it's not natural. It's bim milin with a certain lachash that's done through kishif. That's how this could sprout so quickly. That's the shiata food. So if a guy, the point there is, if a guy prepares this with all these different seeds, it's before it said it's prepared with lukewarm water, it's not bishul. But if he prepares it with very hot water and it cooked it, so then it'll be mutter. Tana Rabbanan and Abraisa we learned, Tana Rabbanan we learned in Abraisa hakuspan shal oivde kechavim. This is the leftovers from dates that was used to make beer from it. So this leftover is shehuchmu that was heated in a pot. So here the issue is not bishul akum, because dates or the leftovers from the dates could be eaten raw. So it is a different issue. A guy prepared it, and the issue could be it's prepared in a pot that's not a kosher pot that has the absorption in the walls of the pot that are treif. So shahuch muhammad, they were prepared hot. So b'yoyde gedaylif was prepared in a large pot, then aser. It'll be aser. B'yoyde ketana, if it's in a small pot, then mutter, then it'll be allowed. Be'ezi yoyde ketana, what's considered to be a small pot? Rabbi Yanai says, "Kol she'ein tzipur dror yochel lechanis b'toicha." The pot is so small that the opening of this pot is so small that a small bird cannot go into the pot. And the point here is because then you know that the guy did not cook any non-kosher food in it. But if it's a large pot, so how do you know what he cooked in it? He could have even cooked a small little bird in it, and then it's possible. It's treif. But what Tanya in another brayso we learned. Oh, sorry, I skipped a line. Yeah. Sorry, the Gemara clarifies this, how small the opening of this pot has to be. But v'dilme admuya adma v'aylo. Why are we saying that the shear is that a small bird can't enter? Maybe he cuts this bird into smaller pieces and he cooks it into this pot. So Ella, the Gemara clarifies and says, Kol she'ein roish tzipur dror yochel lechanis b'toicha. The opening to this pot is tiny. Even the head of a small bird cannot go into this pot. Then you know that he didn't cook it. Even this cut pieces, they don't cut it smaller than a small little head of a small bird. So then you know that it's going to be kosher. In and another brayso we learned, achas yere gedayla, achas yere ketana, that these leftovers of the dates that were cooked, whether in a large pot, in a small pot, either way, mutter is going to be allowed. So so the brayso here said that there's a difference. In a large pot, it's aser. And so the Gemara like Kashya, it's not a question. It's taka machlokes. There's two opinions about this, which will be discussed later in the Masechta Barichas. If we follow the opinion that says that when you have that flavor that comes from the walls of the pot, but it's a flavor that's there for more than 24 hours, or according to Rashi, actually overnight, and then it loses its flavor, becomes a bad flavor, so then it's aser. So if you follow that opinion, it's still aser, then in a large pot where the guy could have cooked in it, it's going to be aser. But the second brayso is like the opinion that says, Noisin tam levgam mutter. If it has a bad flavor, then it's going to be mutter. So therefore, the brayso is saying it doesn't matter, a large pot, a small pot, it's either way going to be mutter. And according to what some Rishonim say, the Taisus over here discusses this and other Rishonim, that's even if you, in a case where you don't know, it's not clear, did the guy cook in it, did the guy not cook in it, or is it already a 24-hour period, is it nice and time of gam or not, it's still going to be mutter because it's really a sfek sveka. You don't know for sure that the guy cooked in this pot. And even if he did cook in it, it may already be overnight or over 24 hours where it's nice and time of gam. And therefore it's always going to be mutter. Okay, but according to other opinions, but the Gemara here is saying nice and time of gam, it must be a case where you clearly know that this is more than a 24-hour period. Amrav Sheishes, Hai Mishche Shlike, cooked oil. The armai from Goyim, aser, will be aser to drink or eat. So in other words, even though we had before that the gzeira about Goyim that produce oil is all mutter, but not if he cooks it. Then it could be an issue of bishul, of the guy cooking the oil. So Rav Safra says, why is there a problem? Lamai nechish, what's the issue with this? The oil is something that you could eat even if it's not cooked. So then what's the issue here? Is the issue that they mix wine in this? Mr. Sorry, it goes bad. And they wouldn't mix wine. Is the issue that it was cooked by a guy, but it can be eaten raw. Is the issue that there's the blias of the walls of the pot that it cooked in, that goes into the oil, but nice and tam of gamu. That's a taste that's a bad flavor, and therefore it's allowed. So if you pass like this opinion that it's nice and tam of gamu and it's mutter, there's no issue. Another shayla boy minei mirabasi. The shayla was asked from Rabasi, Hani, Ahini, Shliki, the Armoi, Mai. These Ahini, dates that are cooked by Goyim, what's the halacha with them? So the Gemara explains when he has this shayla regarding these dates, again, based on the rule before that if it can be eaten raw, it's not a problem. So when exactly did it have this shayla? So the Gemara, if these are very sweet dates, there's no shayla because you can eat it raw. The vade shoro, it's definitely allowed. Miridi, if it's bitter dates that are not eaten raw, loyti bayalach, it's also not a shayla. The vade asiri, it's definitely going to be yasser. Keep the bayalach mitziyai. Dates that are somewhere in between. What's the halacha? So basically here in the Gemara you see that there's a shaila regarding something that you could eat it raw, but al yidei atchak. It's eaten raw, but it's not really properly eaten raw. What's the halacha here? So Amalahu, mighty boy luchu. So he said, what's the shaila you have? The Rebbe Asar. Rebbe already said that regarding such a case that it could only be eaten raw b'shas atchak, it's Asar. And Mani, which the Rebbe that asked it, who is this? Levi. Levi was the one that asked for this. Another case, she saw. It's a dish that's prepared. Rashi says it's prepared from flour that is made from kloyes. It's from what was roasted kernels, and then they make a flour from that, and then it's prepared, or it's also made sometimes from lentils as well. And this dish, what's the halacha? Rav says it's allowed to eat from it. Avoda the Shmuel, but the father of Shmuel, the Levi, and Levi Osri, they both said that it's not allowed. So the Gemara explains what and why and when the machlokes is. B'chiti yisari, if this is prepared from wheat or barley, kulam ulepligi d'shari. Everybody agrees that this is allowed. And the reason is because, again, we're talking here about this flour that's made from these roasted kernels. Roasted kernels already could be eaten before the guy prepares this dish. So there's no issue of bishul akum. So therefore, if it's made from wheat and barley, it's going to be allowed because they don't add any other mixture of wine into this. But talfachi the challah, if it's made from talfachi, which is lentils, and they add challah, which is vinegar coming from wine, everybody would agree that it's not allowed. When it's made with these lentils, from roasted lentils, but what's made with water, so over here, there is no mixture of wine in it. So what's the reason why it should be aser? Because Mar Saba, the father of Shmuel and Levi, they held gazrin and ha that there's exeida. Because by the lentils, they sometimes do mix vinegar, and it's even when it's made with water, they aser as well. So you shouldn't confuse them. But Omar Saba, Rav held le gazrina, there is no exeida. Another version to this was if it's made from lentils, even lentils with water, everybody would agree that it's not allowed because of the gzeira, that you may confuse this with lentils that's made with vinegar. The machlokes is whether we extend the gzeira a step further, when it's made from wheat or barley. Mar Savar, the one opinion is, Gazrina, we take the gzeira even a step further. That even because the ones of lentils are not allowed, so they extended the gzeira even to when it's made from wheat or barley. But Amar Sava, Rav said, like we don't make the gzeira this far. Amar Rav, now since we're talking about this shisa, he mentions that we see from the pasuk that trei mine shisa, there are two types of this dish called shisa that's made from this roasted kernels. Shadar Barzilai Hagiladi LeDavid. When Barzilai Galadi sent a gift to David, he sent him two types of these dishes. The pasuk said, what did he send him? Mishkov, bedding, sifais, other places to lie on, kliyotzer, other kinds of utensils, and chitim, sa'irem, wheat and barley, the kemach and flour, the koli. So here it mentions koli the first time, which is these kernels that are roasted, upul, adashim, different kinds of beans and lentils, and then it says again the koli, second time koli. So that's the second dish of koli that he sent him. Okay, now v'hashta. Gemara says about this dish that was a homachlekes when and if it's aser or not. So hashtu the kamafki tzani l'shukad denarda. Now we see they bring out baskets and baskets of this dish that's served and is sold for Yidden, even though it's prepared by Goyim. V'les t'chayish lo da'avur d'Shmuel b'Levi. No one is concerned about the opinion of the father of Shmuel and Levi that said that this is aser.